Hi, my name is Kathryn Kulaga, and welcome to TheatreQs.
Hi everybody, welcome to this month's episode of TheatreQs. I've got a fantastic interview lined up for today, and I can't wait for you to hear it. But you'll have to wait! The wait is worth it though. Here's your theater fun fact about the musical Cats. Broadway's fifth longest running show, Cats, is an Andrew Lloyd Webber classic based on the 1939 T.S. Eliot book, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. But did you know that the original Broadway production and subsequent regional, national, and West End productions have used wigs made out of yak hair? That's right. According to the Hershey Theatre, the original Broadway production of Cats used over 3,000 pounds of real yak hair as wigs. The national tour of the Broadway revival in 2018 also used yak hair for wigs, continuing the precedent set by the original Broadway production. At a limited run of Cats on the West End in 2014, the Daily Post reported that each yak hair wig takes roughly 40 hours to construct, and each costs over $2,000. Yak it up all you want, but Cats actually featured, and still features, yak hair wigs. My guest today is one of the best stage managers that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. Not only is she currently working on Little Women at the University of Arizona as her senior capstone project, but she has stage managed and assistant stage managed many regional and summer stock productions, including The Wizard of Oz, Uncle Vanya, Gypsy, Frozen, and many others. She is a member of the Stage Managers Association and the United States Institute for Theater Technology. Kathryn Kulaga, welcome. All right, so we'll get started with how did you get started in theater?
That's a loaded question. These are all going to be loaded, aren't they? I got started in theater when I was in high school. So I think it was 2018. That is disgusting. But I started my freshman year of high school. I tried to audition for because usually in my high school it was a play in the fall and then a musical in the spring. And I was going to audition for the play, but then I chickened out because I was like, I don't want to. But for the musical, an old friend of mine was like, hey, you should join crew because I'm doing it and you should do it too. And, you know, high school brain, okay, I'll do whatever my friends are doing. And okay, I'm going to play a quick game with you. What do you think was the crew that I joined?
I feel like it's going to be something like totally different than stage manager. But also it could be stage manager.
So, it was lights crew. My first ever thing I did in theater was changing gels like on side lights during a show. And I did that because I just joined the crew that my friend joined. And I was like, okay, lights, cool. I don't know. So that's what I did for a whole show. And I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I don't know if I want to do this forever like lights, but I kind of like this. And so I really got into it. And then the next year I was on running crew and I had to dress up in like a 40-year-old man costume because we were doing transitions on stage. And then the first show I had ever gotten into like stage management for, we did Cinderella, which first of all, it's not that great of a show. That's fine. But
it's a little overdone.
It is. I have a lot of opinions about that show, but it's fine. And that was the first show I was like the PA on, which production assistant. So I was like doing all the things, helping stage management. And I was like, I think I like this. This is fun. And then I just kept working my way up and realized this is what I wanted to do with my life. And now here I am, a bajillion years later, about to graduate with a BFA in stage management. I didn't even know that was a thing.
What's the difference between production assistant and stage manager?
So, they're kind of under the same, like, umbrella, like the same family. So, usually, in a typical, maybe an equity theater, the hierarchy can go the production stage manager, which is, like, the head, they're communicating with everybody. They are really focused on calling the show, building the show up, taking blocking, things like that. And then sometimes below that, they have a position called either the deck stage manager or just stage manager, like regular. And that's kind of the person that runs the deck. So, like, rather than the production stage manager having to tell the crew where to go and when, it would be the deck SM, like, calling in the rail and working things like that. We're placing spikes on the stage, things like that. And then an ASM is someone who is an assistant stage manager, kind of does either focuses on props or costumes, or they can focus on other things. It really just depends on the company you work for. And then a PA, I love being a PA. So a PA is basically bottom of the barrel, besides if there's like an intern or whatever. They kind of just do whatever the stage management team needs at the time. I, as a PA, have made like backstage signage. I've gone and learned to make a pot of coffee. What else have I done? I've printed so many things so the team can keep working and they don't have to worry about it. So it kind of is just an assistant position. Like, you're kind of just there to do anything, which is, it can be fun, but it also sometimes just feels like you're like a pack mule, but that's okay. And I think everyone should be at the bottom of the barrel at least a couple times in their career so you can have that perspective of what it's like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're also learning skills that'll help you forever, like making coffee.
That is the best thing I can tell anyone in the world. If you are working in theater, learn how to make a pot of coffee and make it good, because people will drink it. And if they have good coffee, that means the day is probably going to go better. But if you make bad coffee, learn how to make coffee.
Good coffee equals happy actors.
That is literally the best piece of advice I could give. Well, like, I definitely have more, like, active and realistic advice, but, like, learn how to make a pot of coffee.
I'm curious how you ended up in Tucson. Was that because of the U of A?
Kind of. So, my junior year of high school, that's when COVID hit. So, I was a junior in March of 2020. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what I want to do for school. I know I want to go for theater, but I didn't know. So I'm originally from Phoenix. So especially with the pandemic, I was like, in-state is probably the way to go, since like I couldn't travel to see other universities across the nation. I was between two schools. There was a school in Colorado, which I got into for theater production, and then I also got into U of A. I didn't want to go to ASU because I was like, that's not my vibe. That's too close to home. I want to go somewhere. And NAU is NAU, and I didn't really want to do that. And I never really got to go tour the Colorado school, and I had known a couple friends in U of A's program. That was before they shut everything down, that it was a great program. They produced 6 shows a year, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply. And I got into the BFA program, and I was like, all right, in-state tuition, can't beat that. So that's kind of how I ended up in Tucson. It was never really a place I was like, yes, Tucson, let's go. All in-state tuition, 100%.
Is this the last year of the musical theater program at U of A?
Next year is technically the last year.
Okay.
But it's like, it's gotten smaller and smaller each year, to where this season, instead of doing 6 shows, they bumped it to 4, just because we no longer have the people to actually do these gigantic shows, because we don't have any more actors, and then we don't have any more tech people as well. So it's just, they've been weeding us out, but I'm very lucky so my capstone is Little Women, and that's kind of like the last big show that they're gonna have, because next year it's like a 3-person musical, a 2-person play. It's just really, really small. So I am grateful to be a part of kind of the last bigger show, at least for the time being, but it's weird. It's really weird. It's just gotten smaller and smaller, and it doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that like a hard shift, especially working with like Saguaro City, where you get like a huge cast, and then
I love
stepping
Saguaro
into
City.
like U of A?
It's been, I guess the best way I could put it is a learning curve, just because so it was announced my sophomore year of college they were cutting the program, and so then fall of 2023 I was supposed to do a show at the U of A, because class credit, whatever, but I found out about Saguaro City, and they were doing a Little Shop of Horrors, which was my first show with them. I loved the show. I was like, how do I get in with these people? And I interviewed, got the job, and then they wouldn't let me go. Rightfully so. I love Saguaro City. But it was interesting going from this big cast of musicals, whether it be Little Shop with a bunch of adults, Matilda with a bajillion kids, and then going back a couple months later to a Shakespeare with college students. Hello?
Vibe shift.
It was a huge, huge jump. And even now, even though I've done several Saguaro City shows and Arizona Rep shows, it's interesting to go back and forth because there's stuff that happens in the professional world that should be happening in this world and educationally, but it's an educational institution and also there aren't as many people. So it's just kind of, I like working professionally because I get to choose my team and I get to be very picky about who I want to work with and who I don't. But in educational world, it's kind of just like a raffle. You get what you get and you have to roll with it, which is not how it works in the real world, which is frustrating. But I understand why it is the way it is. But I definitely love big musicals, which Saguaro City does. And that's like, I'm a musical theater girly till the day I die. But it's just weird going from a professional environment and using my skills as a stage manager in a professional place and in an educational place. It's like my brain is split between professional time and educational time because it's two very, very different environments.
What do you look for in good, assistant stage managers and production assistants and all that? Because there is a lot of responsibility.
That's a good question. What do I want in an ASM? They have to be good communicators. Like, that is number one for me. If you don't communicate with me, I don't roll like that. I need to know what you're thinking, or else I'm not going to understand what you're trying to do. Someone with a good work ethic. I don't do lazy. If you're given something, if I tell you to do a piece of paperwork and you make excuses because you were too tired or you had to take care of your dog or shit like that. Mm-hmm. I hate that. I don't like excuses unless it's like your grandma died. Like, that's a real excuse. Like, silly things, you know what I mean? And so good work ethic, communication. Also someone that's honest. Like, I would so much rather work with someone that calls me out when I do something wrong. Like, if I was being a dick or something like that, and I would rather my team come up to me and be like, hey, you shouldn't have done that, or like, hey, what was that about? I would much rather have someone do that than someone not communicate that to me at all. I'm very, very big on communication. I like to check in with my team, see what we're doing, see how we can improve, things like that. So slay of a work ethic, someone who's honest, great communication, and also someone that is like fun. Like, I don't do bland. Because I'm me. I'm very chaotic. That's who I am. But I can lock in as a stage manager, as you have seen.
Yes,
but
for sure.
It's like, I think something a lot of theater professionals forget, especially as they do it for years and get like tired of it, blah, blah, blah. You gotta remember, we are literally playing pretend for a living. Like, it is not that serious.
It's a pretty good deal.
Literally. And that's something I've had to learn, especially over my college career, is it really isn't that serious. Like, we are putting up a show where people are wearing silly costumes and singing songs. It is not that deep. Like, don't get caught in your feathers. We are literally playing pretend. Like, that... It's literally fine. And that's been very helpful to me because even myself, I get into it and I'm like, oh my God, this is going so bad. Oh my God, everything sucks. I'm on fire. I hate this show, blah, blah, blah. And then I just have to take a step back and go, Kathryn, they are literally men are wearing kilts and they are singing songs. Take a deep breath. And then so I want someone on my team to value that as well. I think those are my big 4 things. Someone who knows how to have fun, someone that can be honest with me, a good communicator, and someone with a work ethic, a fabulous work ethic.
Obviously at Saguaro City, you sort of have, your stage managing team with Riley and Ray/Judah, whoever it may be. But your first show, like, what was looking for that in an interview process? How do you find that in someone just with a very limited, amount of time?
So, at least for my first show, since Little Shop was like an 8-person cast, it wasn't that crazy of a show. And Drew and Dina and I had talked about just having one ASM. And when I got the job, I wasn't even in Arizona. I was doing a summer stock in the middle of Nebraska. And I called them, had the interview, and it went great. But once I got back, we all met, and they were like, okay, let's talk ASMs. And I was like, okay. And they were like, do you have anyone that you would want to bring in? And I was like, no, because they're all doing school shows. Because I wasn't doing a school show, but the rest of the people were. I was just lucky enough to where I didn't need the credits. Because I did like 4 shows in 1 year, and it was all...
Whew, man.
Dude, my resume is stacked.
You're set for years.
I work too much. I need to like not. I'm such a workaholic. We'll get into that. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So we met, and I was like, I don't have anyone personally right now because of school shows. And they were like, okay. So we've had 2 ASMs with us before. They didn't really tell me the names or details, but they were like, one person is very confident in stage management and knows what they're doing, but they kind of don't really want to be there. And the other person really wants to be there and loves the act and wants to be a part, but doesn't really know anything about stage management. And every single time I am posed with that question, I will always take the person who actively wants to be in the room, even if it means more teaching. I would rather have the energy of someone who wants to learn, wants to be there, and just genuinely kind of gives a shit, rather than someone who may know what they're doing, but like literally doesn't care. I will teach anyone how to do anything if they're going to have a good attitude about it. And so that's how I ended up with Judah, which love Judah. He did Little Shop and Matilda with me. And then for Matilda, hello? Something fell. For Matilda, Riley was on winter break. And so I was like, I would love to have you on my team. And so we did Matilda. That was a blast. And then for the other shows, $1 Million Quartet, for some reason, Judah couldn't do it. I don't remember why. But they had a summer camp, the Willy Wonka, and they had an ASM who was just kind of like an intern-ish. And they were like, you can either have her or we can find somebody else. And I was like, I'll take her. Gracie Garcia, literal legend. So she's awesome. Highly recommend as a general human being and an ASM. But she couldn't do Wizard of Oz. And so obviously I brought Riley back on because duh. And then I was like, Race, you want to do this? And they didn't really know a lot of ASMing, so it was a lot of teaching. But I know I whipped that person into shape and is a fantastic ASM. And it was like the dream team for Wizard of Oz. And it helps in some ways to be kind of friends with your ASMs. Of course, it can cause like chaos later in the sense of like post-show if it's bad. You may not like want to be around each other anymore, but I think there's a really good way to separate work and social life. And I think a good ASM should be able to do that with their SM or things like that. But I think that answers the question. I really don't remember what the question was, but no, I remember it. What? How do you choose your ASMs or something like that?
Yeah.
I got there. I took a big loop, but I did get there.
So you have done summer stock. You mentioned doing stuff at the Post Playhouse in Nebraska. And what's the difference? Because summer stock, you're doing more shows in a shorter amount of time. So how do you handle with the actors scheduling and timing and all that because it's so much more compressed?
That is an excellent question. I think it depends on the summer stock. So 2 years ago, I worked at the Post Playhouse, and then last summer, I worked at Music Theatre Wichita, which I will be returning to this summer. They both work in 2 entirely different ways, and I was also in different positions at the both of them. But a lot of times when you're doing a summer stock, there is usually like a resident ensemble, or there can be a resident ensemble. where they are there for either the whole summer, a couple of the shows, things like that. So scheduling, how do I even? A lot of times it's a lot of like splitting rooms. That's something that's very, very common in summer stock. So like the choreographer will go into a different room and teach the ensemble this number, while the principals will stay in this room and block this part of the scene. And then you kind of just like hodgepodge it together, but somehow it works. If you ever want to do summer stock, or if anybody listening, hello, if any of you want to do a summer stock, I think the best advice I could give is be open to whatever, because in such a tight-knit schedule, you're going to go all over the place, and you got to be on top of it, or else you are going to fall behind. Summer stock is hard. It's a lot of really long hours in interesting conditions with not a lot of time to put up shows. Like, if, for example, in Nebraska, we had a resident just company for the summer, so everyone was in all the shows, but that was a very interesting place to work because it was rotating rep. So that means there were 5 shows in rep, and so they would rotate, but it wasn't like we would do one show, then close it, then go on to the next one. We would open all 5 shows, and then every single night we would have to change over. So like if we were doing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat Tuesday night, and we had a matinee for Clue the Musical the next night.
Oh boy.
After Joseph, we'd have to strike all the Joseph things and then set up for Clue on stage. So it was kind of, there was a load in and load out every night, which was really awesome and fun. And I had so much fun doing that. But I also think the craziest thing I ever had at that summer stock is we did 3 show days of 3 different...
That's brutal.
So it would be at 10 a.m. we'd do Charlie Brown. At 2 p.m. we'd do a show called The Spitfire Girl. And then 10 p.m. we'd be doing Clue... Or 8 p.m. we'd do Clue the Musical. And then the next day, 3 show day. I never thought in my life I would ever experience that, but I experienced it as a ripe 19, 20-year-old. Oh my god. That should not be allowed anywhere.
How do you find time to sleep? How do the actors sleep?
I don't know. They had it better off, though, because some of them were only in 3 shows, some were in 4. No one was in all 5, so everyone has a show off. Okay. And that goes for tech people as well. Like, I had one show that I was not a part of. And then Mesa Winder, one of my best friends, but we worked together that summer. And she was also only on 4 shows, but we had a different show off. And it was insane. It was a really hard summer, but I really do think that summer kind of whipped me into shape and made me a better stage manager because of all the shit that was thrown at me and thrown at us as a stage management team. Rotating rep will kick your ass. It kicked my ass. 5 musicals rotating every day. That shouldn't be allowed. But, and then last summer, and this upcoming summer, I worked at Music Theater Wichita, which is an equity house. Shout out MTW. Can't wait to go back. I'm very excited. Which is a repertory theater, but not rotating rep, thank the Lord. So we have, like, when the summer starts, we have a week of prep week, but that's like prep for the whole season and get done what we can. And then we do a week of rehearsals, and then we do a week of tech, and then a weekend of performances, and then the show closes, strikes, and then we start that process all over again. But at Music Theater Wichita, it's a huge company. It's one of the bigger summer stocks in the country. And it's interesting scheduling wise because when I was there, I was not a PSM or a Deck SM. Those were equity stage managers, but I was an ASM. So I didn't have to do any of the scheduling, which thank God, because the production stage manager there, Jenny Lang, absolute legend, she handles all that, and I track props, and then I go home. I help run the deck, and then I go home. So I can't really speak for scheduling and how to do it correctly in a big summer stock like that. But I can imagine it's hard because at least we did Disney's Frozen last year. We were the indoor regional premiere of Disney's Frozen, which was crazy, by the way. Oh my god, I have so many stories from that show. Oh my god, it was crazy. I got to be the puppet handler, so I got to hang out with hold on, I'm gonna pull up a photo because this is the greatest photo ever. I became besties with Olaf. But scheduling in a big place like that in some ways is easier, but some ways it's harder because there's so much. But yeah, hold on, I gotta show you my Olaf photo. It's really important, obviously. So here's the first one.
That's awesome.
That's me in a basement with Olaf. Here's another one.
That's a good deal. You don't have to deal with scheduling, and you get to hang out with Olaf all day.
I also, because we had a bigger team for this show, and since it was the regional premiere, we weren't allowed to, like, show what the puppets looked like until, like, professional photos came out until after the summer. But I was the second ASM on that, so I got to be the puppet handler. So here's all of us. That's the guy playing Olaf. That's the guy playing Sven. He's in a reindeer. And that's Jacob. They were the wardrobe head for the summer. And that's me. When I tell you that reindeer was like 6 feet long, it was huge. And we got it in an elevator. Oh my god, it was a hot mess. And then I had to wear it one day to get it down to the...
Oh, nice.
I had to get it up to the theater, and we couldn't carry it because it's so big. And I was like, I'm just going to put it on. And so I was wearing it was heavy, too. It was, oh my god. But Frozen's a fun show. Highly recommend. I think I answered your question.
Yes.
Are these questions you came up with, or did people ask any?
We have some listener questions, but not yet. These are my questions. I'm asking you all the loaded questions.
Excellent.
We'll get those out of the way first.
I can't wait for the silly ones.
So how do you choose a show to work on? Do you, or an organization, I guess?
Ooh, that's a good question. A lot of it is word of mouth. Just, at least I think how I found out about Saguaro City is an ex-professor. He was like, hey, this company's looking for a stage manager. Heard they were great. And I asked him about it. I was like, what's the vibe? And he was like, well, they're looking for students just because they know that the program is shut down and want to give them more experience, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And so I reached out. I straight up just went to saguarocity.org. Went, hi, my name is Kathryn. I want to do job. Hello. Would love to schedule interview. Teehee. And then a couple days later, Drew was like, hell yeah. He didn't say hell yeah. We weren't besties at that point. He was like, yes, of course. So that's how I ended up there. And then for MTW, that was also word of mouth. A friend of mine who had worked, she's from Wichita, and so she had worked there for a lot of her, like, teenage years, and she was like, yeah, it's great, big summer stock, blah, 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 blah. And then Jenny Lang, who I mentioned, she taught at the U of A my freshman year, so I knew her as a professor, but then she left, which rightfully so, but she started PSMing at MTW, and then I was like, I know her, maybe she'll remember me, and maybe I'll get a job. And so I was like, yeah, my ex-professor works here. I would love to work with Jenny again, blah, 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 blah. And I interviewed with them. And I interviewed with Jenny, which was crazy. Because I was like, oh my god, that's my professor. But now it's like, she's like a friend. And I was helping her with job interviews the other day. That was crazy. Have you ever interviewed someone for a job? That is I was like, I literally told her at the end of the call, I was like, I've never been on the other side of an interview. And she was like, it's good practice. And I was like, literally one of the questions I asked one of the people was, what's your favorite pen? I asked that in a job interview.
I think I like the Bic.
No, you want to know what was the craziest part? The person said the pen that I was using, a G2 Pilot Pen 07 lead. This is the best pen in the world. I literally, because they showed it too. They were like, well, I'm a big fan of G2. And then I went, oh, me too. And it was a whole thing.
You got the job.
And she actually did get the job. She was the best candidate. Great human being. But that's kind of, and then sometimes at least for like, I'm graduating this year, and I'm moving away from Tucson, and I have a summer gig, woohoo, But after that, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. So a lot of it is word of mouth, talking to mentors of being like, hey, do you have any theaters that like don't suck or any recommendations? I'm graduating college. You know? And then a lot of it is also cold emailing. So like I'll go on the websites. There's a website called offstagejobs.com that's specifically for like tech, and I will just go see a job, look at the website, go there, apply, say hey, or if they don't have applications open, I love to cold email places. Just go to a theater, contact someone who looks like relatively like the production manager or the artistic director and go, hey, I'm Kathryn, I'm graduating, I would love to hear about work opportunities, thank you, goodbye. It's more professional than that, obviously, but it's a lot of word of mouth or just cold emailing, which is honestly really scary because it doesn't really offer job security in a sense.
Yeah. Has that worked for you?
Unfortunately, yes, it has. I have met so many people just by like reaching out. Like one of my mentors is someone who, well, he graduated from the university like years and years ago, and he came back to guest speak to a class. He's a Broadway stage manager. And he was like, yeah, if you guys need anything, please reach out, blah, 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 blah. But when people say that, they want you to reach out, not just like a, hey, if you want, blah, blah. They want you to. And I was the only person that reached out, and we went and got coffee. And we were just talking stage management, and to this day, him and I talk like every week just about theater and giving me recommendations, telling people to look at my resume, helping out. It's just, if you have the chance, always reach out and always try to make that connection. And even if they don't answer, that's okay. You can still send it. And if you don't answer, you know you at least tried, because what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, it still gets your name out there.
Exactly. And that's a huge thing about finding jobs, at least in this kind of industry. I really can't speak for the acting side because a lot of it is auditions, but at least from the tech point of view, it is networking. Yeah, it is scary though. Like when I first started doing it, I was like, I don't know this. I'm just what? But then it was like, oh, that's a beautiful thing about theater. That's another thing. People want to help. We are very helping people. So even if the person's outright just is like, no, I can't do this, they usually offer some kind of, but here's what you can do, here's some advice, blah, 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 blah. Because theater people are just generally good people, and they want to help, especially people who are more veteran status. A lot of them are into mentoring and just talking about what they do and helping out younger people. So we are very helpful people in the theater industry, but so much of it is networking. So if you don't like talking, you might want to learn, because that is what the tech part is. It's a lot of networking. And it's even if it's just your name out there, because if someone looks at a resume and is like, oh, I think I've heard of this person, and then contacts another person being like, hey, have you ever heard of Kathryn? The other person could be like, oh, yes, they did this, this, and this with this person. Here's their info so you can talk to them. Contacts the next person. Hey, what do you think about Kathryn Kulaga? Oh, she's wonderful. She would be great. And then, it's as simple as that, which is, I didn't believe it at first. I was like, this is stupid. And then I was like, this is how it works. Cool. So, networking.
I'm curious if you've ever wanted to be a part of the equity, because you are non-equity, correct?
That is correct. I want to be an equity stage manager eventually. Hopefully, my goal is to be an equity stage manager by the age of 26. Big reason for that is because once you turn 26, you are no longer on your family's health care. And since it's a union, you get health care, even if you just joined. So that's the goal, just thinking personally. But I do want to become equity. There are a lot of great benefits, and it would just be important to me. I've always wanted to be equity. However, it can be really touchy-feely of when you join, because once you become equity, you really can't take equity, non-equity contracts, just because the union is so strict with rules. But as a non-equity stage manager, I can take equity contracts if given to me, but I don't have to join the union. But I'd be getting union pay because the union kind of protects actors and stage managers, obviously, but it also sets a limit of the minimum pay you can receive, and there's a bunch of rules if you do hire an equity stage manager, rather than if you hire someone that's non-ec, you don't have to be super strict on those rules. Like, yeah. And so I would love to be equity one day, because it feels weird saying it out loud, but the goal has always been Broadway. That will always be the end goal, 100%. But it's like every day I can feel myself actually ending up in New York, which is crazy, because the dream is to be a Broadway equity stage manager. Am I dreaming big for a 21-year-old? Yes, but that's okay. But I would love to join the union one day. But I don't want to do it straight out of college, just because I still got to build up who I am as a person, establish myself more than just as a student, and then eventually I would love to join the union. But who knows where the wind will take me. I know plenty of stage managers who are not equity, who are incredibly successful and are making a living wage and still enjoy what they do, but they just aren't a part of the union. So it really is very personal preference, because you can be successful with an equity card and without, but personally, I would love to join the union eventually.
And Broadway.
Of course.
Yeah, you'll get there.
End goal. Let's get it. Why not?
26-year-old Kathryn on Broadway.
Literally, I will be there. Revival of Cats. That would be crazy if my first Broadway show was a revival of Cats. Oh my god.
They could change it from Cats to Cat with a K.
Okay, one woman musical.
Yeah.
All right, that works for me. Not my ideal
You can
Broadway.
stage manage and be in it.
Yes, exactly. It would just be me on stage calling cues. That's the whole show.
The life of an equity stage manager.
Lights go. That would be, oh my god, that's a fantastic idea. We should do that. We'll write a show together, Nate.
Yeah, call up Cameron Hood and we can...
Oh my god,
get the
hashtag Voyage. Oh my god, have you seen Voyagers?
Yes, I saw the workshop of it. It's fantastic.
It is so good. Oh my god. I was PSM for the workshop they did in April, but I wanted to go see the August one so badly, but I was driving back from Wichita, so I didn't get to go see it. I was so mad because it's so good. So I haven't seen part 3 yet, but I love Voyagers. It's so good. I actually just donated to them today, because Cameron's been posting about it, and I was like, all right, I'll send you money, because I want to see these godforsaken projections everyone keeps talking about. But no, love Voyagers. I love a space rock opera. I was actually volunteering with Saguaro City yesterday at Tucson Festival of Books.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a chatty Cathy, as we know, but I was talking to all sorts of people, and I was like, don't you forget about Voyagers. What's Voyagers? A space rock opera? And everyone would go, that's so cool. And I went, yeah, scan that QR code. And then they would. But number one Saguaro City fan right here. That's me.
Is there a difference between stage managing like a full musical and a workshop? Because the workshop is a much smaller cast.
So it has the same principles, but doing a workshop is a lot more looser than a musical, because I have only done one workshop. I did the Voyagers one, but I've also worked on devised pieces, which is like you make it up as you go, which is really cool. Oh, my roommate's home. Hey, Queen. So with a workshop, it's kind of more up in the air. And as a stage manager for a workshop, you have to be very, very flexible. And you have to be okay with that flexibility. Because when you're working on a piece or literally workshopping a piece, things are obviously going to change. And they are going to change at least 40 million times. And so as a stage manager with that, it offers challenges of being open to that change, being receptive to that change, and kind of just going with it. Rather, with a play or a musical, it's already all there. You've gotten the rights for the show. You don't have to worry too much about that aspect of it. So that's kind of the difference, or at least how I see the difference. I personally prefer to do like shows that are already things, just because my brain sometimes doesn't. But I do think it's good to get that experience, because I really enjoyed Voyagers, even though it was changing like all the time. But that's just kind of what you're getting into with devised work or workshops.
How do you apply that flexibility to a big show like Matilda or The Wizard of Oz?
So I think the best way to apply that, or I've had to do that a lot with Little Women, which I'm currently doing, just because we'll choreograph one thing one way and then we'll actually put it on its feet with the, like, I was kind of saying earlier, or I don't remember, but sometimes the choreographer will take dancers into another room, choreograph a scene, and then you'll be doing blocking in the room with the director. So you're split up, and so if I'm taking blocking on the scene, I don't necessarily get to see the choreography. So then when we come and put it all together, that's when, as a stage manager, you need to be a little loosey-goosey about that, because once you put those two things together, they don't always work the first time, or it looks dumb. And so when you put them both together, you have to be willing to stay active and positive in the room, because change can be hard, especially when it's like you both just set these two individual things and then you put them together and they look like crap. And so flexibility with that, and then a lot of erasing. Have a good eraser with you, because things will inevitably change, which can be a little stressful, especially if you change it like 4 different times and then it's like, okay, wait, what did we decide? So being attentive to that, and also just having big eraser. A big eraser is very important. But I guess that's kind of how you apply those skills, and just, you got to be flexible as a stage manager. If you are not flexible, it's not going to happen for you, sweetie. Like, things will inevitably change, and you have to be okay with that and open and receive that change and make it work, even though it was something different yesterday, and then it was something different 20 minutes ago, and now it's a whole other thing. So you just gotta, patience is a virtue, and have a big eraser.
So in other words, don't write all of your notes with a G2 pen.
100%. And don't write it down the first time. And maybe not the second. Probably not the third, but maybe the fourth. That's when you should. I've learned that a lot in the current show I'm doing, because it's a lot of like playing and actors trying to figure out what the character is, playing with each other, seeing how things move in the scene. So like, don't write it down the first time, and maybe not the second, and probably not the third, but maybe like the 4th or 5th time we do it, go ahead, especially in bigger shows, because you're trying to figure out how all these moving pieces work, whether it's scenery, props, actors, costumes, all that. You got to be flowy and open to whatever's gonna happen next, and have a big ol' eraser, a very big eraser, or just several of them.
So speaking of Little Women, I like to play a game with every single one of my guests. So since your senior capstone is Little Women, I figured I would ask you 3 multiple choice trivia questions about Little Women.
Is it the movie or the musical or the book?
All of the above.
God.
You get the best of both worlds.
This
All
is
3.
this is gonna be so embarrassing when I get them wrong.
All right, so the first question is, who played the role of Meg March in the 2019 Little Women film?
Oh, it was Emma Watson.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Emma Stone.
Oh, God, I forgot it was multiple.
Was it A, Emma Stone, B, Emma Watson, C, Emily Blunt, or D, Emma Thompson?
B, Emma Watson.
There you go, yeah.
I forgot it was
Did you know that Emma Watson took over the role from Emma Stone after Emma Stone had too many conflicts with another film?
Really?
Yeah.
I'm glad it was Emma Watson. Emma Stone does not scream Little Women to me, personally.
No. Yeah, I think Emma Watson was very well cast in that.
She gives Meg. Like, okay.
The second question is, what is one of the sequels to the book Little Women, also written by Louisa May Alcott? Is it A, Little Men, B, Women of 1871, C, Little Boys, or D, The March Sisters?
It's A, Little Men.
Yep. Yeah, Little Men, Life at Plumfield with Joe's Boys was written in 1871, and it featured the return of the March Sisters.
I've been doing a certain thing for my opening night of Capstone that may or may not be gifts, so I'm not going to say what it is. But I have seen so many copies of other Louisa May Alcott books, especially because there's Little Men, and then there's also... Well, actually, sometimes it's Little Women is split into 2. So the first part of the book is called Little Women, and then the second part I think is called like Days of Plenty or something like that. But in a lot of books, because the book is split into 2 parts, but sometimes the second half of the book is called something else, which is weird, but whatever.
Still the same story.
It literally is. It's just split into 2 parts.
The third question is, the musical of Little Women was workshopped at which of the following universities? Was it A, Vanderbilt University, B, Texas A&M, C, New York University, or D, Duke University?
I don't think it was NYU. I don't think it was. What was the first one?
Vanderbilt.
I'm going to go with D.
You got it. It was workshopped at Duke twice in 2001 and 2004.
I am the smartest woman there ever was. I got all those right.
3. Yeah.
Go me.
Trivia queen.
That was a good guess. I love trivia. I like to think that I'm good at it, but I'm not. But apparently Little Women
clearly.
Trivia, I'm an all-star at.
You can do a trivia night with the cast and you'll win.
Just those 3 questions, though.
Yeah.
A whole night.
The whole time.
Just those 3. Nothing else.
So let's get into a listener question, and this is from Kenzie, who you have stage managed, and she asks, what are your plans after you graduate?
I hate this question. That's like the worst thing about being a senior in college, is just like, oh, what are you going to do after you graduate? I don't know yet. But I am lucky enough to have a job booked for the summer. I will be returning to Music Theater Wichita, which I will be there until like early September. After that, I don't know yet, because I've been applying. The weird thing about tech jobs is you aren't really going to find out what you're doing until like you're really close to actually doing it. Like, people are still looking for summer work, but I was lucky enough to have a summer job already because I'm going back to MTW. But I'm currently just applying for a lot of PA positions across the country. Who I would love to eventually end up on the East Coast. That's the goal. New York, baby. But I don't think I'm...
Cats the Musical with a K.
Yes, Cats the Musical with a K, the one-woman show about Kathryn Kulaga. Duh. And so, I think that should be the title of the episode.
I agree. That was already floating around in my head.
The one-woman show about Kathryn Kulaga, Cats with a K. That's crazy. Oh my god. But I don't really know what I'm going to do post Music Theater Wichita. But I am, unfortunately, leaving Tucson, which whenever I bring it up to anyone from Saguaro City, they yell at me. Like, it's happening. I'm so sorry. Literally, even yesterday when I was... volunteering for them, I'd be like, we're looking forward to seeing you there. Allie Frieders would go, you're not gonna be there. And I'm like, Allie, I know. And she was like, stop lying to these people. And I was like, no, shut the fuck up. Stop. But that's what I'm doing. Who knows where I'll go.
I'm curious if there's a difference between like I feel like Tucson has such a strong theater community. Is there a difference in that in like Nebraska or Wichita or wherever you may go?
So Nebraska is lacking in theater because it's Nebraska. In Kansas, MTW is a big one, but that's mainly just the summer. They do like 2 other shows a year that's with their like academy, so it's like kid and teen focused. But they do have a bunch of places in Kansas City, which is usually, if there's a big city, that's usually where the theater is. And there are like small playhouses, of course, across the country. But if it's a big city, it probably has a big theater that you could work at. Or just a theater in general.
So I like to close out every episode with what I call the Theater Threes, which are 3 questions that I ask to every single guest so our listeners can have a comparison point between, different people across different branches of theater. So, as a musical theater girl, what is your favorite musical?
Oh my god, that's a crazy question. I'm a big fan of A Chorus Line. That's a dream show. I love that show. I think that show is so silly and fun. I also love Little Shop. That is one of my favorite shows ever. I would do it a million times. I love it. So, a tie between A Chorus Line and Little Shop.
The second question is there an industry professional that you looked up to growing up?
Growing up. Honestly, no. Like, I didn't really get into it until I was in high school, and even then I was just like doing shows with my high school, and I wasn't like deep diving into stage management yet. So, I guess no.
Is there one now?
Probably just a lot of my mentors that I've had. Casey Samarico was my mentor at USITT in 2024. I was a part of something called the Stage Management Mentorship Project, and she was my mentor for the week, which was awesome. And she literally has changed my life. I go to her with any questions, and she gives me all the advice in the world. She has changed the way I view theater and has really given me a lot of hope that I can be successful in this industry. She also wrote a book, which is coming out in the summer, and I'm literally going to freak out. Shout out Casey Samarico. I'm going to send her this clip specifically of this podcast just so she can know how much I love her.
Yeah. And we'll promote it when it comes out?
Oh, yeah. Cats. The Kathryn Kulaga music. One woman Kathryn Kulaga musical. Like, we're booked. 2030. Watch out.
Yeah. Right after Voyagers.
Let's call Cameron. Cameron, I got another musical for you. It's all about me.
The third question is, what advice do you have for theater kids or anyone wanting to get into theater?
Learn how to make a cup of coffee. Be open to anything. Be open to doing whatever, but remember to keep your boundaries in place. I think that's a good thing, because especially when you're starting out, you're going to do all kinds of, like, weird jobs, like making cups of coffee, or, like, being in a devised show that doesn't make any sense. So be open to the opportunities that are thrown to you, but also don't let that affect whatever boundaries you may have. And then I was trying to come up with the third one. What did I say? Learn how to make a cup of coffee. Be open, but respect your boundaries. And remember that we are literally playing pretend. Like, it's not that serious. We're having fun. We are making these shows happen. And I think that's something that always irks me when I work with stage managers, actors, tech people who are clearly just miserable and don't want to be here. Like, why are you wasting your time? You would clearly be much happier doing something else and making more money doing something else. People who do theater are there because they want to. So if there is any chance, any viewers listening, if you are even slightly like, I don't know, then don't do it. You should only be in theater if you are doing it for the art. So make sure you enjoy this, and remember, it's not that serious. It should be fun. And you should want to do this. You shouldn't feel like you have to do this. Like, if you're miserable, then don't do it. Go do something else. You'll clearly be making more money. The people who do theater do it because they love it. Not because of the paycheck, clearly. So, yeah, I think learn how to make a cup of coffee. Keep your boundaries, but also be open to experiences. And don't be a wet blanket.
There you go. The best advice in the biz from Kathryn Kulaga.
You know, the star of Cats with a K,
Cats,
the one-woman
musical,
show
coming to
about
Broadway
Kathryn
in
Kulaga.
2030.
We just, like, keep adding more to the name of the show.
Yeah, it gets longer and longer.
Oh, yeah. Just wait till the revival. It's going to get so much worse. Yeah. Cats 2.
Cats 2. And then we can have Cats 3, and then it can make its regional debut at Music Theater Wichita. Oh,
that would be crazy. We should perform it at Dollywood, at Dolly Parton's amusement park. I think that is a totally great place.
And then they can make a roller coaster something.
Oh my
Cats
God.
the roller coaster.
I need to write that down. Cats the roller coaster. It's just me screaming. That's it. You go on a roller coaster, but all you hear is, ah! Ah! That would be crazy. Oh my God.
I think we're onto something.
New life goal. Become a roller coaster. Oh my God.
Well, Kat, thank you so much.
Of course.
I could talk to you for hours, and I mean, I'm sure
Listen, I love being a little chatty Cathy. I love it. Thank you for having me. I was telling my boyfriend about this. I was like, well, because I had to take him home because he didn't drive here last night. And I was like, I have to be back at my apartment at 1. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I'm going to be on a podcast. And he went, what? And I was like, I'm going to be on a podcast. And he's like, oh, are people going to remember that when you're big and famous? And I said, well, yes, of course.
Yeah,
and he,
Cats the musical.
You're telling me, Nate. Like, you get me. You get me. Oh, very silly, very silly.
Well, thank you very much. And best of luck in the future. I really want to come see Little Women.
You should.
I will.
Come see Little Women at the Maroney Theater at Arizona Repertory Theater, April 20th through May 4th. Find me on my social at Kathryn Kulaga, and you can find tickets for it. Little promo.
Got all the plugs out of the way.
Follow me here, follow me on LinkedIn at promotes LinkedIn on a podcast. That's crazy. All right. Well, thank you,
Thank
Nate.
you very much. It's great to see you.
Of course. All right. Toodaloo!
Thank you so much, Kat. It is always a delight. Little Women closes this weekend at the Maroney Theater at the University of Arizona. Tickets and more information are available at the link in the show notes. You can also learn more about Kat and follow her social media at the links in the show notes. TheatreQs is produced by Nate Wiley Productions and me, Nathaniel Wiley, featuring music by Jeffrey Evans. Jeff Evans is a musician and choir teacher from Tucson, Arizona. The song that you heard in this episode is Highway Breakdown Song. Take it away, Mr. Evans.
Oh, someday I will make it there. Until then, I'll just sit beside the chariot that will carry me home, no matter the trouble we find.
If you like what you hear in this podcast, follow the podcast and check out our website, natewileyproductions.com, for more information about the podcast, articles on small businesses, photo galleries, and much, much more. Thank you all for listening today.